Our story opens on the towering troll wall of Norway, a sheer vertical giant that dares anyone to defy it. Two climbers, driven by thrill and obsession, inch their way upward. Sasha, buzzing with energy, rouses her partner as dawn shifts above them and the climb resumes. But hours later, she arrives at a brutal crux, those cruel shelf-like ledges that have defeated her time and again. After repeated failures, her partner urges her to rest, even pleading for them to return the next day. But Sasha refuses to yield, pushing forward through pain as if sheer will could outmatch the mountain. It is only when the sky darkens and the storm rolls in that she finally yields. As they wait for the weather to pass, Tommy insists they take a break the next day, saying the mountain won't go anywhere. But Sasha protests. She is determined to reach the apex. Upon mentioning that his lucky compass is telling him their luck has run out, she finally loses her patience. Tommy finally gives in to keep the peace. As the storm drags on into evening, they make the decision to rappel down to safer ground. But in an instant, the mountain turns against them. An avalanche knocks Tommy off the wall. Sasha holds onto the rope, but it continues to slip slowly. She shouts for him to wake up, but Tommy is completely limp, fully unconscious. The weight of his body is about to pull them both to their deaths. With no time left to think, she makes the choice no one wants to make and lets him go, never knowing if he was still alive. 5 months later, Sasha arrives in Australia, her late boyfriend's homeland. As she sits alone to eat, memories rise uninvited, her restless leg betraying emotions she is trying to bury. The next morning, she stands in a ranger station, studying the map of her next destination. The ranger cautions her about the wilderness's brutality, gesturing to photographs of adventurers who vanished without a trace. Then he asks for her identity details, so they can search for her if she never returns from her camping destination. Later, she stops at a service station where she is heckled by 2 hunters until another stranger steps in. Sasha decides to buy a bag of jerky that the stranger supplies to the store. Later, when she asks for direction, he finally introduces himself. His name is Ben. He doesn't merely point the way. Instead, he points her toward a different route, claiming it leads to a breathtaking camping spot known to only a select few explorers. Sasha, ever the adventurer, decides to visit the secluded camping site Ben mentioned. But shortly after she arrives, the illusion of isolation breaks. The hunters she had met at the store arrived at the very same spot. When one of them tries to speak to her, she retreats into her car, sealing herself inside. He returns to his friends, skinning a deer they've just caught, before eventually moving on. The next morning arrives in silence. The hunters are gone. She sets out to face the rapids by kayak. However, upon reaching a creepy spot covered with photographs of strangers in the middle of nowhere, she quickly turns back. Her grief lingers, anchored by Tommy's compass. She then relocates her camp before calling it a day. A loud cawing sound wakes her up. She looks around. Her bag is gone. Not sure where she left it, she checks the tent and instead finds an angry snake. A cold certainty settles in. She is not alone. She leaves and pushes through the wilderness until the trees give way to a crude, weathered shack, standing alone in the middle of nowhere. Seeing the burning firewood, she searches for the person who lives there, only to realize it is Ben. He welcomes her to his humble abode, offering food and supplies after hearing about her missing belongings. But as they talk, the tone shifts. Ben admits he was secretly watching when the hunters stopped at her campsite and praises how firm she was. This unsettles her, and upon seeing her bracelet on his wrist, her heart starts racing. Ben was stalking her, and he was the one who stole her bag. Sasha tries to leave, but Ben stops her. He goes into the shack to get her bag, but also picks up his crossbow. She freezes, terrified. Then Ben plays a song and tells her she has until it ends to get as far away as she can. His sudden cawing triggers her fight-or-flight response. She grabs her bag and sprints for the kayak. Meanwhile, Ben dances wildly to the tune of the song, eagerly waiting for the song to finally let him go. Sasha pushes through each stroke as Ben starts his pursuit. The kayak overturns at a waterfall, slamming her head against a rock. Refusing to panic, she clutches her bag and battles her way through the water toward the distant shore. After a brief moment of recovery, Sasha pushes deeper into the jungle. She hears people talking in the distance and quickly rushes toward the source, only to discover that it was a setup. The voices are coming from a victim's phone. An arrow suddenly slices through the air, almost hitting her. She starts running again, but another shot grazes her thigh. Enjoying the hunt, he makes another bird call and urgently reloads. A shot tears into her bag, knocking Sasha off her feet and sending her tumbling down the slope into the rushing river below. Even as the current tightens its grip, she refuses to lose control, steering herself toward calmer water downstream. At last, she finds a place to rest. The arrow's mark on her thigh is only a scratch, not enough to slow her down. She continues forward, eventually reaching a spot where she has to use her rock climbing skills. Upon reaching the top, Sasha realizes how dire her situation is. She is lost deep in the jungle. With very limited options, she checks Ben's camp and confirms that his boat is still there. Then, a familiar sound returns. A caw cuts through the air. Ben is close. She scrambles back down the cliff as he arrives. The hiding spot is awkward and uncomfortable. Above her, Ben scans the area, but he could not spot her and finally leaves. For once, Sasha has the upper hand. Seeing him chilling back at the camp, she quietly slips toward the docked boat. The mooring rope lies within reach. She grips it, but a hidden trap snaps onto her foot. Hearing her screams and struggle, Ben excitedly rushes toward his victim. Spotting him, she scrambles for the pepper spray, and as he pulls her to shore, she uses it against him, buying herself precious time to free herself. But the iron chain is securely welded to the stone, and Ben finally recovers to stop her once and for all. That night, he speaks to her as if he is teaching her something, talking about rituals, about pain, and about how suffering can be shaped into growth. The next morning, he takes her to a place where he has hidden all his victims over the years. On the way, he tells her he looked up her details from the ranger's register and dug into her past. He brings up her late boyfriend and the incident at the troll wall. Ben thinks Sasha is like him because Tommy was an experienced climber and assumes she caused his death. Sasha, who has been blaming herself for the incident, refuses to associate herself with a stone-cold killer. She says accidents can happen at any time. While talking, she secretly tries to free herself. Focused on escaping, she eventually stops responding to his question. He becomes suspicious, pushes her out of the boat, and drags her toward the destination. He leads her deep into a cave. Sasha, who has always maintained her calm and composure, finally crumbles at the sight of his victims. She realizes that the pack of jerky Ben has been supplying is actually human meat. He tries to calm her and asks if she thinks he is a monster. She says she thinks someone must have hurt him and feels sorry for him instead. Ben then reveals his modified teeth, claiming they are part of his personal transformation inspired by tribal rituals. A moment of self-reflection makes him feel disgusted, and he leaves hastily. She then notices a portrait of Ben and his mother. Moments later, he returns, slipping back into his unstable, violent persona. She tries to appeal to whatever sympathy he might have left, asking about his mother, only to discover she was his first victim. Ben embraces her, calmly stating that she too will soon become part of him, just like his mother. Sasha snaps, biting his ear and using his body weight to pull herself down. Adrenaline takes over as she drags him off balance and bolts toward the river. Ben follows suit and grabs the rope, securing it to his harness to make sure they remain together. The two get dragged down into a whitewater course, with Ben hitting his head on a rock and losing consciousness. They eventually end up at the bottom of a ravine. There, she grabs a rock to break the rope, but it doesn't work. With Ben coming around, Sasha shifts her focus to him, eventually gaining the upper hand after dealing a massive blow to finally stop him. She can finally take a breather. She suggests performing a tandem climb out of the ravine, or If Ben refuses, she will wait for him to perish and take his climbing rope. Ben reluctantly agrees, but warns her that if she tries to detach from him, he will pull her down. With her hands free at last, she finally has a chance to act. As they climb, Sasha finds an opportunity to free herself, but Ben notices and immediately yanks her down. She covers her actions quickly, claiming it was only a harness adjustment, and continues upward. Moments later, she encounters a similarly challenging spot she was unable to conquer in the past, the notorious crux, but this time she finally makes it. She then secures the rope for Ben to climb, but also uses the flat area to once again free herself from him. This time, she goes for the harness instead of the rope. But once again, Ben catches her in the act and immediately yanks her down. Sasha clings on, refusing to let go. Blinded by rage, Ben fails to notice that Sasha's harness gradually comes loose before finally slipping free. Ben freezes in disbelief, his rage dissolving into helplessness. She quickly hauls herself back up, strips the rope free, and sends Ben to his doom. An unsettling feeling of déjà vu creeps over her. She steadies herself for a moment before climbing on. When Sasha finally makes her way out of the ravine, she has a moment of rapture. She crumbles into simultaneous tears and laughter. She keeps moving until she reaches a road where a passerby spots her and immediately comes to her aid. She returns to the ranger station and alerts the authorities, who recover at least 20 bodies from Ben's hideout. The story ends with Sasha paying tribute to Tommy, throwing his lucky compass into the ocean as a final goodbye and a sign that she is ready to move on.